Welcome to Chris's Storytelling Corner. This is Christopher Moldong of Chris's Storytelling Corner. Today I'm going to do a movie review for Coco. Next time I'll have a manga review for Skip Beat Volumes 5 and 6 and a movie review for Star Wars The Last Jedi. You can check out my author's website at www.chrismoldong.com. You can buy my first novel, a fantasy adventure called The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom for $4.99. Also, for $2.99, you can buy my short story collection, a collection of 10 short stories in the horror, fantasy, and realistic fiction genres. Check out my Twitter page and author's Facebook page. Links to all these will be provided on the description. I'd also really like to hear from you guys as well, so leave any comments about this movie review in the comment section. Also, if there are any movies you'd want me to watch, you can recommend, or any movies you'd even want me to review, leave that on the comment section as well. Make sure to subscribe and share this channel if you can as well too. So that the way that this is going to work is that I'm going to give a recap, a full recap of the movie Coco. So there will have spoilers. And after I give the recap of the movie, I'll give my thoughts on the movie, consisting of things like the characters, story itself, the themes, and whatnot. As far as an initial grade I would give this movie, I'd give it an A. I thought it was really good. Characters good, story's good, visually stunning, good themes going on, good for kids, good family movie. There really wasn't too much wrong with it. Some really small things here and there that, I guess were not really even problems, or just like minor quibbles I've had with the movie, but otherwise I thought it was really good. So, let's go recap the movie, Coco. So, family matriarch Imelda Rivera was the wife of a musician. Her husband left Imelda and her daughter Coco to pursue a career in music. She then banned music in the family and turned to shoemaking, which became the family business. Her great-great-grandson, 12-year-old Miguel, now lives with the elderly Coco and their family in a small Mexican village. The thing is, though, he secretly dreams of becoming a musician like Ernesto de la Cruz, a popular film/singing star of Imelda's generation. One day, Miguel damages, just by accident, Imelda's photo at the center of the family ofrenda and removes it, discovering that Imelda's husband, whose face is ripped out, was holding Ernesto de la Cruz's famous guitar. Later, when Miguel attempts to enter a talent show for the Day of the Dead, his grandmother Elena destroys his guitar. Miguel concludes that he is Ernesto's great-great-grandson and enters his tomb and steals his guitar to use in the show. When he strums it, though, he becomes invisible to everyone in the village plaza, but can see and be seen by his dog Dante and his skeletal dead relatives who are visiting from the land of the dead for the holiday. Taking him there, they find that Imelda is unable to cross over as her photo has been removed from the ofrenda, and Miguel must return to the land of the living before sunrise, or he will become one of the dead. So to do so, he must receive a blessing from his family that can undo the curse placed upon him by stealing Ernesto's guitar. Imelda initially offers Miguel a blessing on the condition that he abandon his musical pursuits, but Miguel refuses and attempts to seek Ernesto's blessing. Miguel then encounters Héctor, a down-on-his-luck skeleton who once played with Ernesto and offers to help Miguel reach him. In return, Hector asks Miguel to take his photo back to the land of the living so he can visit his daughter before she forgets him and he disappears completely. Hector tries to return Miguel to his relatives, but Miguel escapes and infiltrates Ernesto's mansion, discovering along the way that an old friendship between the two had kind of soured before Hector's death. Ernesto welcomes Miguel as his descendant after Miguel plays one of his songs in one of his parties. But Hector confronts the two, uh, just begging Miguel to take his photo. Hector realizes the truth about his death. Ernesto poisoned him and stole the songs he had written, passing them off as his own to become famous. Ernesto steals Hector's photo and has him and Miguel thrown into a cenote pit. Miguel realizes that Hector is his actual great-great-grandfather and that Coco is Hector's daughter. The only living person who still remembers him, though, is Coco. With the help of Dante, who now appears as an Alabrije, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I've pronounced it wrong. It's kind of like this otherworldly creature. The dead Hiveras find and rescue them. Miguel explains that Hector's death was the result of his decision to return home to Imelda and Coco, and Imelda and Hector reconcile. They infiltrate Ernesto's sunrise concert to retrieve Hector's photo from Ernesto and reveal him as a fraud to the crowd. Ernesto is crushed by a falling bell. He actually died while he's living by a falling bell, just as he was in his previous life, but the photo is destroyed of Hector once it reaches the water. So as the sun rises, Hector is in danger of being forgotten and disappearing. Imelda blesses Miguel without condition so he can return to the land of the living, where he plays a song for Coco that Hector wrote for her during her childhood. It's called Remember Me. The song sparks her memory of her father, Hector, and pretty much just revitalizes her, and she gives Miguel the torn out piece of the photo from the ofrenda, so Hector's head, like face. Yeah, which shows Hector's face. Elena also reconciles with Miguel, accepting both him and music back into the family. A year later, Miguel presents a family ofrenda featuring a photo of the now deceased Coco to his new baby sister. Letters saved by Coco contain proof that Ernesto de la Cruz stole Hector's music, and as a result, Ernesto's legacy is destroyed and the public honors Hector in his place. In the land of the dead, Hector and Imelda join Coco for a visit to the living Haveras as Miguel sings and plays for his relatives, both dead and living. So, some thoughts, initial thoughts on the movie just itself. That, like I said, visually speaking, this movie's amazing. I mean, just like it's Disney Pixar, and it just seems like Pixar just always takes a step up. Like every movie, it always just outdoes itself. Since maybe not always, but a lot of times, just kind of outdoes itself from its last previous outing. So visually, it was really good. Some thoughts on the characters. Miguel. The thing with Miguel, is that when he's starting off, you know a little bit about him, like he loves music and whatnot. I I don't know, like it's that small quibble. Like the thing is, like it was for me. It was kind of hard to get into his character until like the second half of the movie. And I'll say this right now. I think if there was something about this movie that could be critiqued, is that like the second half, I feel is a lot better than the first. So you're just kind of establishing the characters and the story in the beginning, and it just kind of moves at a relatively slow pace because there isn't a centralized conflict until we reach the second half of the movie when they introduce Ernesto de la Cruz. Um, Once you get there and around that area, then the movie starts to really move along. I think it takes a while to establish itself, to kind of establish Miguel as well. And Miguel's just like a kid. Um, Can't even call him a precocious kid. He's just like a kid. He's shining shoes. He's gonna get into the family business, but he loves music. It's like that's what you kind of know so far. He idolizes Ernesto de la Cruz, but otherwise, like he doesn't necessarily. I want to say doesn't always act like a kid, but I guess he'd act like how a 12-year-old kid would act. Um, but he definitely drives the story and whatnot. Like I said, I think at first it was hard to kind of relate to him, and then eventually, as the story moves along, you just really start cheering for him and what he's trying to do. Um, as far as someone who honestly just felt like the underdog throughout the whole movie, I liked Hector a lot, who turned out to be, um, Coco's dad. I liked him a lot. He was more of just like I said, the underdog. Like he's real down on his luck. One thing I'll say about Hector too is like when I was watching this movie, I was like, man, you're introducing this Hector guy. He's still around, and we're like halfway through the movie, and we haven't even seen Ernesto de la Cruz anymore. Who's this Hector guy? You know what I mean? And I'm kind of thinking, you know what? I think he might be Coco's dad. Like, I was just like, I mean, it's kind of not the hardest thing to tell, I suppose, but it was just kind of like, yeah, you didn't really show Ernesto de la Cruz yet until like halfway through the movie. Hector's still around throughout like the whole movie, so he can't just be nobody, or just some dude named Hector. You know what I mean? But yeah, he was definitely in my opinion, like one of the more sympathetic characters. First of all, especially once you know like the backstory. Um, they're saying he died from eating a chorizo, but it turned out he was poisoned by Ernesto de la Cruz, and he's dying. Like he's going to just like fade away from the land of the dead too. So like I think the difference with Hector and Miguel, and why, like, in a sense, you can actually think of Hector as like the main character in a sense, is because there's just more at stake for Hector than there was for Miguel. You know, Miguel kind of drives it because the he's the one that crossed over from the land of the living to land of the dead. So he's kind of like in both, you know, he's kind of in both worlds. So he's the one that can cross over. But Hector, like I said, like as far as stakes go, I mean, this is the guy whose daughter in the land of the living is gonna forget him, and he can just pass away forever, yeah, just vanish forever to who knows where. He's the one that gets his song stolen. He just but he got killed because more or less he did the right thing. He wanted to go back to his family. So there's just a lot more to sympathize with Hector. Um, in a sense, kind of a little more relatable. Like Miguel's kind of relatable, but Hector's kind of like, okay, he left a family to pursue his dreams. When it wasn't going anywhere, he wanted to go back home, but he was betrayed, and he's been paying for that like almost like ever since. You know, he and not to harp on it too much, but like I said, the stakes for Miguel at this point aren't as high. It really is just like, okay, he can't play music. Okay, I mean, I get it. He loves music. Miguel does, but it doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world for him. Unlike Hector, where it's like, dude, the guy's gonna vanish forever. Like that. That's the thing. Talking about Ernesto de la Cruz. You know, it was a good twist. What can I say? It was just a good twist to have Ernesto de la Cruz be presented as the great great grandfather to Miguel, and then it turns out that he's not. And not just that, he's portrayed as this hero, musician and whatnot. Seize the moment, right? Oh, seize the moment. That's like his catchphrase, if I'm not mistaken. And he almost uses that against Miguel and Hector and throws him into the cenote. Cares. I mean, he's the real villain, but something of a standout too. Once he's there, he kind of like lights up the room in a sense. Just he's really charismatic, um, but devious as well. Uh, you understand his motivations, whether or not, even though you're most likely going to disagree with it. Obviously, he killed a man to further his own and a friend in order to increase his own reputation and fame. I mean, that's evil. You understand it, even if you don't like it, Um, and he was really like the established villain of the movie. Um, Devious guy. When he first meets Miguel, he seems all right, and then once the layers start getting peeled off, you can kind of tell he's not so caring. Uh, he's not such a good heroic person. He's quite honestly a selfish person who allowed fame and wealth and whatnot to envelope his whole life. And, to the point where it's like, hey, I'm going to get rid of Miguel. Let's put him in the cenote and put Hector in that cenote as well. And in the land of the living, it's kind of like, he killed Hector, obviously. You also introduced like Dante, who actually turned out to be like a spiritual creature, even though he seemed like a regular dog. Um, it's nice that it's nice that Miguel had a friend. Dante was a lot smarter than he kind of let on. He actually, I believe he actually knew that Hector was the great great grandfather and tried to stop Miguel as well. Um, he definitely is a dog. Like he's just a loyal companion. We were introduced to the Dead Hiveras. Not too many of them, except for Imelda, got a lot of play. It turns out though, a couple of them can fight, which is pretty cool. Um, and it's kind of cool because when you get into the themes of this movie, it's kind of like family first, living or dead, and it's just kind of like at the end of the day, it was family that helped Miguel through everything. Even in death, family was the one that was the constant. They're always there for him, looking out for his best interest. Um, but yeah, the only standout really was Amalda, who, was obviously left alone with her daughter, uh, when she was still living, because Hector went to go be a musician. But she was resourceful. Definitely like the matriarch type. And even in like the land of the dead, she's kind of like that strong-willed and whatnot. But it turns out she's kind of got a secret too. She actually loves music. She can actually sing. She was actually singing with Hector, when they were together. Um, she doesn't necessarily hate music, even though the whole thing, the whole premise of the whole family is like, oh, we hate music, let's make shoes. You know, like that. But at the very end, everything kind of comes full circle. She gets to actually sing at the very end, kind of makes up with Hector and whatnot. So that was really cool too. Um, then there was like Coco, who was just kind of there. She's kind of like, you can almost think of her as like a husk, you know? Miguel seemed to have really gotten along with Coco, though, even though she didn't say much. That scene where he's playing "Remember Me" for Coco, though, man, oh man, that just, yeah, someone was cutting onions next to me right there, man. I mean, there are some scenes where I could have sworn people were cutting onions next to me, and for some reason there were tears in my eye. Someone was, near the end mainly that was happening. I don't know who was doing such an act in a movie theater, such as cutting onions, but it made me cry. Yeah, that made me cry. But back to the other thing is that it's kind of a character in itself was like the land of the dead, and you just kind of see the panoramic view of it. It's the colors of this movie and just of the setting and even the characters really vibrant, really bright. Even though like it involves death, like it's a very colorful movie. The land of the dead is actually a very relatively colorful place. It's um, you can I mean, when you do the panoramic view, you can even see the windows of the homes and whatnot. So I mean, yeah, he goes to the land of the dead. It's pretty vibrant, actually. I mean, there was that place with the lost, like I forgot what it's called, but like the people that really didn't have a family to go back to and whatnot. Otherwise, it was quite a vibrant place. Things were happening. It seemed like things were always on the move whenever he was like when Miguel was in the land of the dead. Big thing about this movie, of course, was family. Like I said, in Land of the Living, family was always there to look out for the best interests of Miguel. In the Land of the Dead, the dead Hiveras, were there looking out for the best interests of Miguel. They were the one constant. They were helpful. It's like with the Hiveras, the deceased relatives. It's like never actually met Miguel per se, but he was family, and that's it. Like it's like, oh hey, we're helping you. Period. Done. Like uh, it doesn't matter. They know that they're family, and family sticks together, and that's really like one of the major themes here. Music also brought everyone together too. That was another thing. It was kind of the thing that revitalized Coco. It was it kind of brought Imelda and Hector back together if you think about it. There's the thing that music was the thing that broke them apart, but in the end she sings and whatnot, and at that concert, and it kind of just brought Imelda and Hector back together. So music was kind of like this force, this power in both the land of the living and the land of the dead that was able to actually do a lot of things. It's actually how Ernesto de la Cruz got into power as well. It was the thing that made Hector distant from his family, the Haveras. You know, it's the reason why Miguel can go from the land of the living to the land of the dead. It's the motivation for Miguel. It's the motivation for Ernesto de la Cruz. It was the motivation for Hector. So music was a big deal, you know. And finally, the other thing I really liked was just the culture, you know. I mean, I remember I was watching this one, I forgot, it was like a History Channel show, and they were showing cenotes, you know, and then like you see them fall, you know, like thrown into the cenote. It's like, oh hey, that's a cenote, you know. Just the way that they decorated things, the mariachis, the colors, you know, it was very vibrant. Uh, there was a clear like social structure with the culture and the family and whatnot. Even in the land of the dead, it's you still got that idea of culture. It's very celebratory, you know, for one thing. Uh, you know, it's very spiritual. Uh, as far as another thing as well. So yeah, you know, great movie. Good for families. Uh, there's a lot to like. I mean, if there's one criticism, it's just that like it takes a while to kind of get going, but once it gets going, like it really goes. You know, so great movie overall. So that's all for today. If you like this, don't forget to subscribe, share, and comment to this channel. Thank you for listening to this movie review. Next time, I'll have a manga review for Skip Beat Volumes 5 and 6, and a movie review for Star Wars The Last Jedi. Thank you, and until next time.